This is a CO2 powered pellet pistol by Umarex. It's part of their Legends range, and when I ordered it I obviously was going by a little thumbnail of this box cover, so I was delighted when I discovered that it comes with the correct lugs to fit a shoulder stock. I wondered how I might get the trigger the right distance from my shoulder, so in the end I took my air rifle, put it on a sheet of A4 and drew round it, then took it away, and as I reasoned that trigger distance from the shoulder was probably quite important, at first I put the Luger there, but then realised that the sight picture would be horrendous because the sights on the air rifle are up here, so I slid the Luger up to get the right sight picture, keeping the triggers vertically in line. I did a quick Google image search and found that there's a huge variety of different stocks fitted to Lugers, not like with, for example, the C96 Mauser, where that hollow stock come holster is pretty much the option you see everywhere. With the Luger I saw cast folding skeleton stocks, I saw fabricated folding skeleton stocks, I saw wooden stocks that were holsters, wooden stocks that were really well made and attractive, and I also saw, very commonly, a certain wooden stock that's just effectively a slab of wood about 19mm or 3/4 of an inch thick, with slightly rounded off corners that just clips onto the back. I thought that one very ugly, so I don't want to make one of those. But one thing I did do was do a quick test using the grip of the Luger in the photo as an index of length, and I discovered that most of these stocks had a length of around 2.5 Luger grips, whereas this has a length, the way I've done it, of only 2 Luger grips. So I think I will change it slightly and make it a bit longer. Having arrived at a shape that I like, I've drawn it onto this piece of wood with a marker pen. Then I cut that out, and here it is after a bit of rough initial shaping with a small grinder and a flat wheel. I've done a bit more sanding. I want to get the right cross-sectional shape, but I'm not after a really nice finish here. Stocks are made of walnut, not pine. I deliberately chose, as you saw, a really horrible old rotten bit of wood because I want the finished result to look old. Now I think I'm getting close enough. I'm not saying I finished the sanding, but I'm getting close enough to a point where I ought to start thinking about how I'm going to attach the thing, because that's going to affect the angle at which I cut off this end. The Luger would sit more or less like that, and I have the basis of a plan for working out how to hold it on. I want to take this little thing and cut a V-shaped groove which starts at one end very wide and gets progressively narrower as it nears the other end but doesn't reach the other end, and if I get it the right width, hopefully it will clip on to this T cross section and nip up as I push it home. I'm not going to try and emulate that curve because I don't have the skill to bend this piece of aluminium. Once I've got it clipped on, I'm hoping I can cut a deep rebate the same width as the piece of aluminium into this piece of wood and set the piece of aluminium this way up into the piece of wood with adhesive on the side walls of the piece of aluminium, gluing into the rebate in the wood, and hopefully that'll hold it steady and it'll clip on at something approaching the right angle. I've cut my little piece of aluminium. I'll show you how it clips onto the gun. So that's nice and firm at that point, doesn't wiggle about. At what angle do I need to cut off the front of this stock then? I should say around there. I think I'll just cut it off square to that. Here we are with the end chopped off and a rebate cut into the material, and now the hope is that I'll be able to glue this piece in here like that and then slide the pistol down onto it when I want to install it. I'll get it glued in and we'll see if it works. Here it is glued in and the gun clips on like this. And the whole assembly looks like that. I've put it to my shoulder and it is a little hunched, but looking at images of people shooting the things, I can see that they were that hunched and that the dimensions are about right. I do need to consider how I'm going to finish the stock. I'd like it to look old and battered, and I don't want it to be too obvious that it's pine, so I need some sort of finish which goes some way towards obscuring the nature of the grain, because this is currently very obviously made of pine. There's another matter, which is how to finish off the butt of the stock. I've had a look, and it seems that most of these stocks didn't have a metal end cap, a brass or steel butt plate, so I think I might try covering it with some really horrible knackered old veneer I've been saving. This strip of veneer is exactly the same width as the rear face of the stock, so I'm hoping that I can get this grain to flex enough to allow me to glue it in place, and then I'm going to think about staining it. I glued it on and snipped all around it with scissors once the glue had dried, and then I just gave it a quick scrub with a bit of very coarse sandpaper to tailor it in, for example, where the wood was chipped. Should be okay. Now let's think about finding a stain that won't reveal too much of the grain. Here's the recipe I've come up with. In this bowl we have a small splodge of black acrylic and a small splodge of brown acrylic. I'm now going to add a small amount of water and a teaspoon of instant coffee. This will be my wood stain. Once I've got it mixed, my hope is that the acrylic paints will serve to help disguise the grain, because the instant coffee on its own does give a lovely shade, but it won't do anything to conceal the grain in a piece of wood. And as the grain of pine is so distinctive, I would like to do my best to dull that down. Let's see how well this stuff works. That's actually quite pale. I'll paint the whole thing and get back to you. The coffee is doing a wonderful job of bringing out the grain, which is of course just what I don't want. So I'm going to add a great deal more brown acrylic and black acrylic to the mix to see if I can come up with something that does a better job of hiding the grain and hiding the fact that this stock's made of pine. Well, this side doesn't look too bad, but the grain on this side is even more conspicuous. So I've abandoned the black and I'm going to add even more brown acrylic to my diminishing volume of water. I'm still using that same water that you saw me pour in, and we'll see if we can't hide the grain a bit more effectively. Now that the third coat's dried, we can see that it is beginning to look quite old. This side still has this pesky conspicuous grain. There's only one thing I can do: more wood stain. I ended up effectively painting the thing black. I was so keen to conceal the telltale pine grain, but at least it looks reasonably old. Now all I need to do is paint this black, and then I can think about sealing the whole thing with a very thin layer of matte lacquer. Let's see whether this stock improves my accuracy. I'll just put a fresh CO2 cartridge in. In goes the fresh magazine, and then I clip the stock on. Like that. I've never shot this pistol with the stock fitted. Okay, we're aiming at that green Sprite tin. Range is 31 feet, by the way.
Oh.
Okay, the stock does make me more accurate. One last thought. It would be very easy to cut the stock off here, hinge it, fix a catch, and then drill a couple of cylindrical voids which could accommodate a spare CO2 canister, and you could even add bigger cylindrical voids if you wanted to accommodate some spare ammunition. I reckon this thing could easily carry 2 spare CO2 canisters and say 200 rounds of ammunition. It shoots about 100 pellets per canister. So yeah, that's another thought. I won't be doing it with mine, but it's something that someone building one of these could actually choose to do if they wanted. Thanks for watching.